Hello, everybody. Scorgan the Toad, and I'm here to welcome you all to the Guild's fourth Blood Bowl competition. This year we'll be streaming it and putting it up on YouTube for others to watch. This year we have a total of 6 teams that will be competing. All are experienced coached from past seasons for the last 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this. And they're all bringing some pretty competitive teams, considering the rules that we abide by, in the hopes of earning the honor of sitting on the Blood Throne for the year. This will actually probably be the last one for us until the new Blood Bowl 3 comes out, and we'll be switching over to the new rules. To start off, the rules for our league are as follows. First, there is a limit on the number of skills that you can take. Go ahead and pop into one of our teams here to give you an example. Okay, so our rules state that you can only add a skill if you have less than 4 of that same skill on your team at the time when you want to add a new skill. So as you can see here, when Leah created her team, she decided to put guard on 4 of her players. Now, she can't add guard to any other players, but if there is a player that starts with guard, obviously there's not, she would be able to add that player. Since she's not adding skills, she's adding another player. It's kind of a weird way of getting around the rules, but it's far better for us to keep those rules like that instead of preventing people from adding players to their team, because obviously there are some teams that have all dodge or all guard, or I mean not all guard, all block, um, which if we didn't abide by those rules and allow players to be added, then obviously those teams would not be nearly as beneficial. Um, Moving on to the second, all of our coaches are allowed to use mixed teams, um, but we limit it to only 2 races from each of the mixed teams. Using Leah's team here again as an example, she's using the Necromantic team as well as the Kimry. Now, of course, the undead team actually has vampires, and undead as well, but she's not going to be able to add any players from those teams. She can only add players from Necromantic and the Kimry. Um, we also use a hybrid injury system. It's similar to what most people would refer to as a resurrection system. With full resurrection, all injuries, all deaths, everything is automatically healed after every game. We've tried that in the past and felt that it rewarded certain teams way more, and it took too much away from certain teams that um, relied on being able to injure players and kill players. So we went to this. We're trying a new system this season for the first time, which we're referring to as the hybrid injury system, in which after every game, any injuries, deaths, or anything will be downgraded by 1. So if a player dies, then they now have a major injury. If they had a major injury, that gets downgraded to a minor injury, and obviously on down. This this will allow some of the squishier teams to actually survive a little bit deeper into the season, since we have a 10-game season plus playoffs. But it also will reward some of the players and some of the teams that want to go, claw, mighty blow those, and actually getting the kills and major injuries. Still reward them with possibly limiting some of the other teams a little bit during the playoff or during the season. When we actually do get to the full playoffs, we do still run under um, full resurrection rules, and that's mostly because when it gets down to elimination playoffs, we want it to be the coaches that are winning the team, not the fact that one player was missing three or four of their key players. What else? Now we are a very competitive league, um, and if you watch some of our games, you'll kind of notice that we may not always be the most competent coaches, but I guarantee you everybody goes out there and tries to win. But deep down, this is just for fun for us. So we do have a rule that we've had in play for a while that we refer to as a mercy rule. Any coach can request mercy and just give up anytime during a game, and the other coach has the option to grant that or not, with two exceptions. The the other opponent coach has to honor a mercy if a team is outnumbered 2-1 and behind by two or more touchdowns. That can happen anytime during the game. Or there are three or less turns remaining and you're down by two or more touchdowns. Um, a lot of times these are very uphill battles, and if a player and coach chooses not to want to try to go ahead and finish it out and would prefer to just try and protect their players and finish the game, we allow them to basically just say the game is over. They cycle all the turns, so they don't have to do a full um, concede and lose all points or anything that they do. This probably doesn't come up very often in our games, but I'm sure once or twice during the season it might. So if you're watching a game, hopefully the commentators, me being probably being one of them, will kind of point that out, and we can go on from there. Now to move on to the teams. Since we're already here on Leah's team, our first coach is Leah the Squirrel, and she's bringing the Metal Single Ladies and a dog. Obviously, this is a combination of Necromantic team as well as the Kimberly. Um, to start off the season, every player had to make a straight 1,000 point team value team, and then they were allowed to spend 200 more points to go ahead and upgrade that. So these are the players that she was able to get with 10,000 plus a couple rerolls and stuff, and then she's put some skills and a few other points into, I believe, assistant coaches to round it out. And she came out with 1190. Not sure why she's decided to save that other 10 rather than getting cheerleaders or something, but that's completely up to her. It looks like she's starting with one werewolf that is set up kind of on killing duty with Claw and Mighty Blow. This is pretty standard for her. She likes to usually have a couple big guys with guard, and she went ahead and put block on her two flesh golems, which I'm sure during the games you'll see the Tomb Guardians kind of holding in the middle and the flesh golems kind of playing outside, because with their stand firm, they're a little safer near the edges. She's starting with a Kimry thrower with sure hands and accurate, and then finished up the team with just several skeletons. You may notice that she only has one player with agility 3, the werewolf, and of course her thrower, even though it's agility 2 with sure hands, that's still pretty reliable. 50%, 75% chance of picking up the ball most of the time. And that's about it for the first team here. Next up, we have Jera the Mage's team. Jera's usually more of an elf player. He's been kind of working on trying to play some lizards and decided to bring the lizardmen in this time. Very skink heavy, as you can see, with 6 skinks to start, as well as 5 Saurus and the Kroxagar. He's only starting with 1 reroll, but he did go ahead and get the Apothecary to start. And pretty standard Lizardman team here. I'll also point out that this is a Lizardman only team. He chose not to do the mixed team so that later in the season, when he builds up some points, he does have the option to hire star players, which mixed teams can only hire the mercenaries. Pretty much went with just block on 4 Sauruses, tackle on 2. Went ahead and put, I believe that is dodge on, sorry, sure feet on one skink, and that was pretty much his 12,000. Again, couple coaches assistants, couple cheerleaders, 1 fan factor, kind of all over the place with those. Then we have Dawn's team, which at first glance here, this looks like just a straight Chaos team, but he is actually Chaos United. I'm sorry, I think this is Chaos Player Pact, if I remember right. But he did start with just Chaos and has the option to add any one of those other races during the season from this mixed team. So he has a lot of options depending on what he sees in the league and which way he wants to go. I mean, adding Underworld if he wants to be a little bit more killy. He can add Dark Elves for speed, as well as the rats for the speed as well. You know, adding gutter runners if he really wants to up his scoring potential. He's kind of got multiple options here. Went ahead and started with the 3 rerolls and the Apothecary. No other real bloat to the team. 4 block, tackle, 1 mighty blow, 1 sure hands. Just very simple, something to start with and to build on. Next up, we have Tall. Tall is kind of one of our players that usually plays the more bashy, middle of the road, average teams. This year, he's decided that he wanted to try something a little different with some passing options. So he went ahead and stuck with something that he kind of knows in Lizardman as kind of his front 6. And then he added 5 players from the Kislev Circus to have the option of a little bit of a throwing game, where he even took a lineman here and actually specialized him with safe throw and pass to actually have a throwing option. And then, of course, with the leaps and the diving catches from the catchers, went with both big guys with the Kroxigor and the Tame Bear. I mean, there's a lot here to be bashy, but from test games and from what I've seen already, he has the option to score very quickly when he needs to, really capitalizing on some opponents' mistakes, and I kind of what I'm expecting. 2 rerolls to start. Who we have next is Helmet, or Headbutt, or Vigilant. She goes by many different names, but she'd been saying that she wanted to bring in the Praetorians, and that's pretty much what she did. This is one of our other passing teams with Praetorians, and Wood Elves. It looks kind of squishy with this mini sevens, but um, as you can see, a lot of people haven't been taking tackle yet, so her Blodgey War Dancers are probably going to be pretty safe for a while. Um, with all of these players already starting with block, she's already locked in several players with block. She's got Dauntless. She's got Strip Ball on 2 of her blitzers. And then, of course, she's bringing 2 Wood Elf throwers, one with leader and one with sure hands. And of course, she took that one leader to have one reroll, since to start off she took 0 rerolls and is relying on Headbutt, her main person. Of course, the team is named after him, Headbutt, to be the leader of this team. And then her line is pretty much just going to be 3 Praetorian linemen with Fend. It's not the most reliable, but it does just give 3 cheap guys to hold the line for her, and then just avoid outrun with the 7s and 8s. We'll see how it turns out for her. Then we have the Gork's Goblinade ad. This is my actual team, Skorgans. And this is a combination of Skaven and Orcs from, I believe this was Far East. It's Far East or Violent together, but personally, I like the Bashy teams. Orcs and Lizardmen have always been kind of my go-to style of play, so I decided to just stick with what I really enjoy with my Goblins. But with all the high scoring potential that I was expecting to come in the league, we actually didn't have nearly as much, with a few players kind of changing to the more bashy versions. I wanted to be able to kind of match that scoring potential with bringing gutter runners and a thrower, and just relying on my strong orc base. And just letting my runners and my thrower hang back if need be, but be there and just score fast as needed. Just going with 3 rerolls and some fan factor. Went ahead and went with my ogre with guard, as well as 2 black orcs with guard, and then the other 2 black orcs with mighty blow. Those are all 4 of my block guys. And as you can see, I intentionally did not take any of the players that I have the option to start with block, so that they can be added later and wouldn't prevent me from taking block on these black orcs. But of course, people who know orcs, they've got the 4 blitzers there, as well as the Skaven blitzers. If block is really needed, I can start replacing some people. And the first 2 that are going to be replaced are these 2 goblins. These goblins you may not even see in my first game. I may actually just drop these goblins and just, for the first game or 2, rely on 2 orc linemen, loners, just to be next to blue on the line. And the last 2, you can kind of ignore those. Those are 2 AI teams that will only come into play when we get to the playoffs, because with 6 teams, we're going to have 2 teams that get buys. Those automatically get to play an AI halfling team during their bye week to rack up SP if they so choose, while the other 4 battle it out to see who advances in the playoffs. And that's pretty much our teams. I'm hoping whoever sees this later will enjoy it. If nothing else, I know we, as a group, love to rewatch our games, and with Blood Bowl 2 not always saving them for as long as we like, we're hoping to preserve them on YouTube. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys later.